Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
His Holiness Bhakti Dev Damodar Maharaj, His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, His Excellency Mr. Vyapuri, former Vice President of the Republic of Mauritius, Honorable Manoj Siban, Member of Parliament, Mr. Premhans Jaggu, former Secretary of Public Service and Mrs. Jaggu, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dear devotees, Hare Krishna. It is with great pleasure and heartfelt gratitude that I welcome each one of you to this auspicious celebration of Geeta Jayanti 2025, the sacred commemoration of the divine moment when Lord Sri Krishna revealed the timeless wisdom of Srimad Bhagavad Gita to his dear devotee Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra in India. Today, we gather not only to honor this sacred scripture, but also to collectively reflect on how his teachings can guide modern leadership, strengthen national harmony, and inspire individual transformation. This year, ISKCON Mauritius has chosen the meaningful theme, the Gita's mandate for Mauritius.
Hare Krishna. Good evening, everybody. Yes, on this auspicious day, I wish to extend a heartfelt and warm welcome to our esteemed guests, respected dignitaries, fellow devotees, and dear friends gathered here. I'm Raghunath Das, co-zonal supervisor of ISKCON. On behalf of ISKCON Mauritius governing body, I feel honored to welcome you all on this divine appearance day of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, on this auspicious day of Mokshada Ekadasi. We would like to express our deepest gratitude to Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who gave us this transcendental knowledge more than 5,000 years ago. This divine knowledge is the king of all knowledge and most confidential of all. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna himself says, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Pavitram idamuttamam, Pratyakshavam, Gamam Dharmyam, Susukham Kartum Avyayam. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and is joyfully performed. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Raghunath Prabhu, for your warm and inspiring welcome. To begin our event formally, we now move to the keynote address titled Governing the Nation by Governing the Self. This powerful theme reminds us that the true leadership, whether personal, national, or global, begins with inner discipline, clarity, and integrity, the very foundation of Krishna's teaching. Before inviting His Holiness Bhakti Dev Damodar Maharaj to the stage, allow me to briefly introduce Maharaj, despite Raghunath Prabhu has already started introducing Maharaj. Maharaj is from West Africa, is the first sannyas disciple of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Maharaj is dearly loved across Africa for his tireless service and compassionate gratitude. He received first initiation in 1985 and second initiation in 1986 from His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami. After 2 decades of dedicated service, he accepted sannyas on 25th March in Mayapur, India, initiated by His Holiness Jayapataka Swami. In 2011, he took his Guru oath before Srila Prabhupada at the Hare Krishna temple in Lagos. He is the first African sannyasi an initiating guru in ISKCON, and has served as GBC for West Africa for about 5 years. Maharaj regularly teaches Bhakti Sastri and Bhakti Vaibhav at VIHE and Mayapur Institute, and offers seminars on community building, self-sufficiency, and practical applications of Krishna consciousness. He also serves on the MIHE panel for ISKCON Disciple Course. Maharaj, not only that, he traveled extensively, USA, India, Brazil, Seychelles, Mauritius, and is developing a vibrant farm community in West Africa, promoting devotional service and self-sufficiency. With great humility and joy, we now invite His Holiness Bhakti Dhir Damodar Maharaj to deliver the keynote address.
Whatever action a great man performs, common man follows. And whatever standard is set by exemplary act, all the world pursues. So the Prophet explains in the Prophet, people in general always require a leader who can teach the public by practical behavior. A leader cannot teach the public to stop smoking if he himself smokes. Lord Chaitanya said that the teacher should behave properly before he begins teaching. One who teaches in that way is called Acharya, or ideal teacher. Therefore, a teacher must follow the principles of Shastra, scripture, to teach the common man. The teacher cannot manufacture rules against the principles of revealed scriptures. The revealed scriptures, like Manu Samhita and similar others, are considered the standard books to be followed by human society. Thus, the leader's teaching should be based on the principles of such standard Shastras. One who desires to improve himself must follow the standard rules, as they are practiced by the great teachers. The Srimad Bhagavatam also affirms that one should follow in the footsteps of great devotees. That is the way of progress on the path of spiritual realization. The king, or the executive head of state, the father, and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. All such natural leaders have a great responsibility to their dependents. Therefore, they must be conversant with standard books of moral and spiritual codes. Here, Krishna is telling Arjuna, it is character that preaches, not our words. Our words doesn't have potency if one does not have character. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, you are a Kshatriya. Your duty is to lead. So if you leave the leadership and go to the forest, many people are going to follow you. Because in Kaliuga, people follow just by seeing. They don't follow good qualifications. In past ages, people follow things by qualifications. In Kaliuga, we follow without qualifications. You see someone do something, we just follow. We don't care to check if it is suitable for me or if I need it. People don't do that. We simply follow. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, you are a leader. If you don't do your duty properly, if you go to the forest, many people will follow you there. You may do meditation, but what about those who have no qualification and go to the forest? What will they do? It will destroy their life. Therefore, don't act whimsically. Be principle-minded. Have a good character. Take their responsibility and teach people. In that way, people will follow. And we also saw that in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The sages, they gathered at Namisharana to hear about Krishna. They told Sridhar Goswami, we are not here to get the philosophy from you. We don't have time. We just want to hear what is your realization. Your realization is what we need. Because your realization, it is not the theoretical thing you read in the book. It is what you have actually realized from the trainings you have gotten from your previous teachers. Share that with us. In other words, they saw that Sutta Goswami has character. Therefore, they want to hear his character. They didn't want to hear his philosophy. So Krishna is teaching and doing here. The people see the character. People will say something about us. That is what people say about us. But what we really are is our character, is our behavior. That is the most important thing. Therefore, knowledge is not power. The character is power. Knowledge can fail, but character does not fail.
So, distinguished members, guests, devotees, and well-wishers, it is indeed an honor for me to be in your midst on this special day of the appearance of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita was spoken on this day, a little more than 5,000 years ago, by Krishna, who is accepted as being the Supreme Lord in the Vedic tradition. His friend Arjuna, a great warrior king of that time, was the direct recipient of this knowledge. This text has been widely read by great thinkers and famous people of the world, like Oppenheimer, Albert Einstein, Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, who actually read Bhagavad Gita while he was in jail, in prison, George Harrison, and so on. But the Bhagavad Gita is generally thought to be a Hindu religious book. Few people know that it actually offers universal and timeless wisdom. What we would like to do today is go beyond the surface and explore the broader perspective of this book with the help of our distinguished panelists who have spent decades studying and applying this knowledge. Before we dive into the discussion, I would like to quote an excerpt from a talk given by one of the prominent, or the most prominent, proponents of the Gita of the last century. He is Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. During his historic visit to Mauritius 50 years ago, this will set the tone for our discussion. So I quote, "If leaders of the society lead the people in the proper channel on the basic principle of spiritual life, then everything will be solved. Everyone will be happy." These instructions are there in the Bhagavad Gita, very elaborately. Simply, we have to follow the instruction. It is not at all difficult. Then all the questions, social problem, political problem, economical problem, religious problem, everything will be very nicely solved. We are presenting, therefore, Bhagavad Gita as it is. And you take any question, and the answer is there in the Bhagavad Gita, very nicely given, unquote. So tonight, we'll not be able to cover all these points, so we'll just choose a few points, centering on the theme of leadership, governance, and sustainable development. So let's dive into the subject. My first question goes to Chaitanya Avatari Prabhu. So the Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjuna, who was a leader within society, a ruler of his time. And Lord Krishna describes how this knowledge was handed down through the generations of rulers for the benefit of society at large. During his historic visit to Mauritius 50 years ago, Srila Prabhupada brought the same message and declared that it's meant for the leading class of the country. He wanted to meet them and share this message. So Chaitanya Avatari Prabhu, you are an established leader within ISKCON. You've got considerable experience in organizational governance. So how, according to you, would our current day rulers benefit from the message of the Gita? Can they draw any practical applications in terms of their duties and responsibilities?
The founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, often quotes this, that this Bhagavad Gita is actually followed by the saintly kings. because that's how the whole message of Bhagavad Gita is passed on. So therefore, there is a need as leaders of the society that they need to understand the principles and teachings of Bhagavad Gita, as explained by the keynote speaker today, that Arjuna was in such a dilemma that whether to fight or not. And Krishna gave this knowledge to him because he was a ruler, he was a king, and he was perplexed when in a crisis. So Krishna gives this knowledge by which that he could overcome his crisis and he was able to fight and render his rightful duty as a king. So to me, that if you practically look at this, there are so many wonderful verses from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, chapter 4. It talks about how this whole knowledge is received from the Parampara system, and how, if it is followed by the great leaders, that common man naturally follow that. So when we have this principle very clear, then what happens is that the teachings permeates through the whole population. So therefore, it's very important that we follow certain lessons from Bhagavad Gita as leaders of the society. There are many things, and I would certainly would not want to mention all of them, but maybe a couple of it. One of this is that we say in the Bhagavad Gita, the word dharma is used, but in a modern time, that we need to be ruled and we need to conduct ourselves with some moral principles. Because one of the important things as a leader is that we should follow the principle that if anyone who take over as a leader, that principle should govern and rule, so that people will not feel that they are the ruler is biased. So one of the important thing is that, like how whether we are fighting for dharma or adharma, similarly from modern age and time, it's very difficult to distinguish what is dharma and what is adharma, because we are always split in our thoughts. But if we go by the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, that we understand the principles by which that one have to rule, one have to lead, one have to conduct ourselves, then it's become very clear that anybody who would step into our shoes would also see the same way that how it has to be delivered, how it has to be governed. So that's for me something is very important takeaway from Bhagavad Gita from our modern times. Second important point is that moral integrity and self-control is a very important aspect of leadership. That again is being explained in Bhagavad Gita, and specifically if you see the 16th chapter, Krishna is talking about how a leader should be. He's talking many qualities, that how purification of one's existence, self-control, simplicity, humility, honesty, like that he is listing so many wonderful qualities. And he's saying that without such qualities, one cannot become a leader, because all the opposite of this cannot obviously lead person by example. So for us, when you see from our modern times, it's very important that we need to have these qualities. And these qualities actually being given from generations and handed over to us. And that's what Krishna is saying. And so, again, it is emphasized in chapter 3 that the great kings followed this wonderful knowledge and passed it on to all of us till today, which are relevant and applicable for all of us in our lives. So it's very important that we have this important moral integrity and self-control for us, because if without that, we can't claim ourselves to be leaders, because if we don't follow what we actually teach, people will not take us seriously, and we can't lead the people successfully in our society. So it's very important component from that point of view. Of course, the last and the third, which I would like to emphasize, is leadership character. I think the keynote speaker also mentioned this wonderfully. Character is one of the key success factor for anyone, because this knowledge is freely available to everyone. Bhagavad Gita is available from time immemorial. And who has utilized it? And we also know that people who utilized it, they were successful just by following. As Krishna convinced Arjuna that when he was perplexed with so much of difficulty, that he pay attention to what I'm going to say. But when he hear Bhagavad Gita, all his doubts were dispelled and he was ready to do what Krishna wants him to do. So similarly, as leaders, that if we don't have this kind of a wonderful qualities what is being explained by Bhagavad Gita principles, and if you don't have this self-governing principles, then it's just very difficult to claim ourselves to be leaders, and then it will be a society where blind leading the blind, because it will be only chaos will exist, and we don't want to be, because we somehow, like how Arjuna is recipient of this wonderful knowledge, when you are chosen to become a leader, you own a big responsibility to execute on behalf of the society, on behalf of the community, on behalf of the whole country. So it's very important that we draw this, at least 3 important principles from the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, for in order to be a successful leader, is my limited realization. Thank you.
My next question is addressed to Dr. Vedika, specifically on this question of moral dilemma. Because in the Bhagavad Gita, as you mentioned, Chaitanya Vedari Prabhu, we see that Arjuna was torn between his duties as a ruler and his duties, or his affection towards his kings. And he was so perplexed that he was completely overwhelmed, incapable of deciding on the appropriate course of action. So similarly, we see that in modern governance, that also presents dilemmas. Because leaders, they have to choose between popular, short-term political gains and long-term, ethically sound decisions for the national good. And similarly, we find in businesses also, they have this dilemma, whether they will go for, profits, bottom line, or follow business ethics. So Lord Krishna's instructions help Arjuna overcome his existential crisis. And Dr. Vedika, you come from the academic world and you're helping to shape the minds of our future leaders. What principles would you help your students extract from Arjuna's dilemma and Krishna's solution to apply in their lives, both now and in the future, as contributors to the economy?
Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. I'm deeply humbled to be sharing this platform and basking in your aura. Thank you, Hare Krishna. So coming back to the question, yes, I would say that as an academic, as a mentor, and as a teacher, the teachings of Bhagavad Gita are remarkably relevant for our youth today. Why? Because they are also juggling with their moral dilemmas, their own Kurukshetra moments, this time not in the battlefield, but in the classroom, in the lecture halls, in the internship, during the internship, and very soon in the boardrooms of a public or private institutions. So how do we cope? How do we connect? How with Bhagavad Gita address this dilemma? Before that, I would like to share a few examples of the dilemma that our young students are facing. Perhaps one would be a student who is on internship and identifies some unethical practices over there. The student is in a fix. Should I speak up or just remain silent to protect my job? An ethical dilemma, perhaps you'll agree with me. The second one, a student identifies a teacher's bias, but therefore to address the bias, the teacher's bias, or just to pass it for the next semester. Thirdly, and perhaps more relevant today, we are using generative AI tools. Okay? And then there are many students, I think many, yes, I can't say all of them, but many of them who are using generative AI to write their assignments. So the dilemma is here. Should I follow all the friends, or should I be original and write my own ideas and be more creative? What to do in such situations? Very often we see during group works, we have students who do not contribute, who do not take charge of their responsibility. Should we cover those students or report them? Another ethical dilemma. So what does the Bhagavad Gita teaches us as a teacher to impart to our students? What we've been trying to do is to work on the three main principles. I will be focusing on the three main principles. And the first one being the principle or the concept of Nishkam Karma. Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 47 extols Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhod ma te sango swakarmani. That is, one has the right only to its action and not to its results. Let us look around us. Let us assess ourselves. Are we not result-oriented? Are we not outcome-oriented? When we talk to our youth in the class, they've already made long ideas, expectations, and decisions. They want to become very rich faster. They want to become very popular in no time, okay? And then, unfortunately, when these things do not happen, they suffer from a huge breakdown, mental breakdown. And you would agree with me that in this very year we have noted a rise in suicide in Mauritius. Okay? So why? Because we are so much result-oriented, we forget the process. The process is about cultivating the values. Just do your duty. And here it reminds me of a very important German philosopher, Immanuel Kant, who speaks about a categorical imperative, and he says, one has to perform his duty for duty's sake. Duty for duty's sake. That was his maxim. No consequences, no result, no outcomes. And this is the way they free themselves with all burden about the future, about the anticipations and expectations, and they focus on their duty as a student. Secondly, we try to focus on the concept of swadharma. The Gita again extols that one has to perform his duty, no matter how imperfect it is, rather than doing someone else's duty, which is perfect. The same scenario, that happened in the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna, he is lamenting and he wants to give up. And therefore he says, I rather live the life of an ascetic by begging rather than fighting my own kins. So what is the swadharma of a student? Nowadays, students are into everything, thanks to internet, okay? But what is the primary goal? What is the primary duty of a student? Swamiji's, Maharaj, everyone's is focused on character building, nourishing the mind, nourishing the soul, nourishing the body. Are we actually doing that? Being very peripheral about things, very superficial about things. And thirdly, third point I would say, it is very important for the generation of our young students nowadays to develop karma yoga. By karma yoga here I mean the discernment power, what we call as the vivek gyan. Discernment between right and wrong, between good and bad, and more so between good and pleasant. And the Kathopanishad explains it very beautifully through a dialogue between Nachiketa and Lord Yama. So then, using our Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana, we need to listen very attentively what is being said, what is being taught, not to react. We have the habit of reacting a lot nowadays, especially with the Gen Zs. I see a lot of Gen Zs here, okay? And then we have to listen properly, and then we have to manana. Think, critically think over it. Analyze it, break it down, synthesize it. And if you filter out what is right, what is in accordance to the Shastras, contemplate on it. Build your values on that. Build your edifice of knowledge on that. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Dr. Geeta, for really deep insights on this subject matter. I'm really very much grateful and amazed at the same time. My third question will go to His Holiness Sundar Chaitanya Goswami Maharaj. It's a question on a paradox, which would like Maharaj to clarify for us. Because we see that in the Bhagavad Gita, on one hand, it describes the world, Krishna actually brands the world as a place of misery, suffering, as a temporary place of suffering, dukhalayam ashashvatam. And on the other hand, we see that it's also a natural pursuit for everyone to try to be happy in this world. We try for comfort, we strive for happiness. And we see that our political leaders also, they strive to make plans for people to be happy in this world, to try to satisfy people. And even the founder Acharya of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada, when he instituted this movement in 1966, the first of his statement of purpose is to achieve unity and peace in the world. So we'd like to ask Sundar Chaitanya Maharaj, who's our local ISKCON sannyasi, and you're also traveling around the world, and you're guiding people in different phases of life. So how would you explain this paradox? On the one hand, the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says this is a world of misery. And on the other hand, we see the attempts of leaders in secular society, and also our own founder trying to establish a movement to bring about peace and unity.
Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanandana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you, Haridev Prabhu, for this wonderful question. In fact, the Bhagavad Gita is a guiding element, a guiding text for humanity, by which it's a navigation for the human existence. It's like a manual. If you buy something, maybe a TV set, you have to have the manual to switch on and switch off. So similarly, this Bhagavad Gita is a guiding element for humanity at large. Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, because Arjuna is also one of the leader of society. He was you can say he was also a politician. He was also a leader. And the Bhagavad Gita is actually, Bhagavad means absolute knowledge. The knowledge that doesn't change. In this world we speak mostly about relative knowledge. If you buy a newspaper, you read it, next day you don't want to read it because it's a relative knowledge. If you take the Bhagavad Gita, any point from the Gita, you see any word, any point, any subject matter, it is eternally true, never change. And Krishna never said perhaps or maybe, right? Maybe the scientists speak like that. But Krishna, if you read the Gita, would never say perhaps or maybe. Krishna explained, asamsaya, of this there is no doubt, eva, certainly, he's telling Arjuna. So this is the knowledge, the king of knowledge, Maharaj mentioned. You can say the king of knowledge or the knowledge for the king, right? Because Arjuna was from the royal family. So when Prabhupada came to Mauritius, you can say this is actually the only place where Prabhupada was invited by the state, right? By the government. And Prabhupada got the government reception, driver, car, everything from the state. And Srila Prabhupada took that opportunity to preach to the leaders. And when Prabhupada was here, there was kind of cosmopolitan atmosphere. And there were people from all segments of Mauritius, the Christians, the Muslim, the Tamils, the doctors, the lawyers, also the Minister of Youth and Sports was also here, and the UK ambassador and Indian ambassador also here. And Prabhupada mentioned that it is easy to preach to or to implement the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. It will be easy in a smaller country. Prabhupada mentioned that from Mauritius. He said it's a bit difficult to implement the teachings of Bhagavad Gita in bigger countries. So he wanted to implement these teachings of Bhagavad Gita here in Mauritius. And that's why he gave the blueprint for Mauritius. He said also, why you're growing only sugarcane? If you grow sugarcane, then you're going to make molasses, and then alcohol, and then you'll be engaged in drinking alcoholic drink, and then to digest this, then you need to eat meat. So all sinful activities. Yes, it is not a paradox. I mean, the Supreme Lord is a place, is the Lord is where all contradiction is solved. Right? In Srimad Bhagavatam itself, Krishna is telling that the Lord has sent a generation of men and demigods together with the sacrifice for Vishnu, and he said, be thou happy. You're getting peace and also liberation, right? So this is how, although it is dukhalayam asajvadam, this world is a place of misery, it is temporary. Mamupetya punaha janma, Krishna is saying. He's saying, Mamupetya punaha janma dukhalayam asajvatam nabdavanti mahapunha samsidyam paramam gati. Krishna is saying that Mamupetya punarjanma, one who becomes Krishna conscious, he will not take birth again in this world of suffering and temporary world. This is the place of suffering. One who becomes Krishna conscious, he will not take birth again in this world, place full of miseries and temporary world. Why? Because he will achieve the highest destination. So it is not contradictory, it is not a paradox in one sense, because this world, we know it is of course temporary world and full of misery. And Krishna is saying that the Lord has sent man, generations of men and demigods, and said, be thou happy. You will attain happiness, peace of mind, and also liberation. So he said, along with the yajna of Vishnu, man and demigod, along with sacrifices for Vishnu. So, although it is a place of misery and suffering, but if humanity, the living entity, perform yajna, and what is the yajna for this Kali Yuga? Sankirtan Yajna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And this was spoken to Arjuna, and Arjuna is he is called the Raja Rishi. the king previously, they were also saintly king. They were not just leaders, they were not just king, but they were saintly king. And those saintly king, they would make sure that the living entities, the people, they would also be engaged in the yajna. There are many yajnas for different ages, but the yajna for Kali Yuga is Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
The fourth question goes to Rasamai Malaji. It regards another key aspect of leadership that was touched upon by Chaitanya Vedari Prabhu. He mentioned about integrity. So let's pursue this avenue. There is a famous saying that power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We saw in the news recently in China, one of the ministers was sentenced to death penalty for taking bribes of over 100 million USD during his tenure. And what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, what can repression accomplish? And we can say that he's right. I mean, Krishna is always right, of course. Because we see that the global average score on the 2024 corruption perceptions index is 43 out of 100. What does this indicate? It indicates the balance leans more on the corruption side. So, Rasamai Madaji, you've previously worked in the corporate world, and you've been serving also in ISKCON for long years in leadership role along with your husband. So I would like to ask you if the Gita has any core principles that can help leaders develop a culture of inherent integrity and incorruptibility, both in the secular world and within religious organizations.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimade Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Shunyadi Paschatya Deshatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarana Paramananda Madhava Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. So when we talk about corruption, so we can say this corruption has been there since this universe has been created. It's there along with that. So that means when Shri Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, repression cannot help. So we can see that yes, it's been there since time immemorial. So naturally what Krishna is saying is correct. So we are also seeing that this corruption is there in our day-to-day life. Also we can see that it's there. So here Arjuna is asking Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? So we can see that even in our own lives, to a certain extent, that sometimes we may not want to do something bad, something. Now we know that it is not good, but yet something forces us to do. We are unwillingly, we are doing it. Do you have experience of that? Yes? Yeah, all of us have experience. So that's what here Arjuna is asking. Even though we don't want to do something bad, and yet we are forced to do it. What is it that impels us to do it? So for that, Krishna is answering him. It is lust only, Arjuna. What is it that impels us? It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. So this lust is what which impels us. So and what is corruption? Corruption is lust and greed. So when lust and greed get together, that is when we are forced to be corrupt. So that's why Krishna is saying that artificially trying to stop a mischievous habit is not possible. So Lord is saying in Bhagavad Gita, even a man of knowledgeable acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? So because we are forced to act by the force of the three modes of material nature, even if somebody forces us not to do certain thing, then it's not possible. Like now he said that a person was sentenced to death because he had taken a bribe of $1 million or $100 million. But just because this person is hanged, do you think it will stop others from doing this act? No, it is not going to, because they are going to follow their nature, which is born of the influence of the three modes of material nature. So how are we going to help? How are we going to get out of this corrupt nature? How can people get out of this corrupt nature? How can we get out of this lust? For that, Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, that the only solution is to surrender unto him. Why? What is he saying in the 18th chapter? He's saying, Sarvadharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. So you give up all the varieties of religion, and what we have to do, just surrender unto me. And what happens if we surrender unto Krishna? Aham tvam sarva papebhyo. All your sinful activities I will eradicate. Moksheshyami mashuchaha. I will liberate you from all these sinful activities. Do not fear. So what we need to understand is that the reason why we are acting like this is because of the previous baggage what we have carried, because of the previous baggages what we have carried. If we are suffering today, why are we suffering? We are suffering because of the impious activities what we have done earlier. The result of that impious activity is our suffering. So Krishna is giving us a guarantee. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo. So if we have to get out of all these impious credits, because of which is causing us suffering, what we need to do? We have to surrender to Krishna. And how do we surrender to Krishna? That is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come here to teach us. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than Krishna himself, who has come 500 years ago as a devotee of Lord Krishna himself. And Sri Krishna himself has come to teach us how to surrender to him. So what is he saying? Cheto darpana marjanam. You have to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And what does this Hare Krishna Mahamantra do? Cheto darpana marjanam. It clears all the misgivings which are in the heart. It cleanses our heart. And then when the heart is cleansed, then when we receive this knowledge, then we can actually practice that. Practically we can apply that in our lives. So that means by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Then when we chant this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the dirt in our heart, all the lust, anger, greed, everything, all these misgivings, everything is cleansed. And when this is cleansed, and then when we read the Bhagavad Gita, what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying in the Shikshashtaka, Vidyavadu Jivanam, like how a wife follows the husband, knowledge follows when we chant. So that means we understand the Bhagavad Gita. Before chanting Hare Krishna mantra, even though we would have read the Bhagavad Gita, we would not have understood it. Now many of us have that experience, but the minute we start chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, when the heart gets cleansed, then knowledge is revealed. Because the Lord is sitting in the heart as Paramatma, the knowledge is revealed. And then we know how to apply these principles of Bhagavad Gita in our own lives. So it is very important that if we want this Bhagavad Gita, if we want a corrupt-free environment, then we need to give this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So when our leaders, when they are knowledgeable and when they know the principles of Bhagavad Gita, when they accept the principles of Bhagavad Gita, then they no longer want to be corrupt, because they understand that by being corrupt, then they have to suffer. They have to suffer the reactions of the corruption. So then the Bhagavad Gita, the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, sees to it that they do not act in a corrupt way. So that is why these teachings of Bhagavad Gita has to be given to all our leaders. So when our leaders understand this, they see to it that this knowledge is also given to the public. Like Maharaj was saying, Yadyad Achariti Sreshtas. Whatever great men do, common men will follow. If the great men are chanting the Lord's names, if the great men are following the principles of Bhagavad Gita, then the common people also will chant the holy names of the Lord, and then they also will read the Bhagavad Gita. So in order that we don't have a corrupt leadership, what we need to do is, from the very beginning of life, we need to give this Bhagavad Gita. From the very childhood, we need to give this Bhagavad Gita to our children. So when our children know this Bhagavad Gita from the beginning, later on when they become leaders, they will not become corrupt. So that is why this, as Prahlad Maharaj is saying, no, Kaumaram Acharat Pragno. This spiritual knowledge has to be given from the very beginning of life. How Prahlad Maharaj got this when he was in the womb of his mother. When he was in the womb of his mother, Narada Muni gave this knowledge to him. So like that, every parent, everybody is a leader in their own right. The parent is a leader. Anybody who leads is a leader. So the parent, the teachers, the society at large, everybody, they are leaders. But they can be good leaders only when they know Bhagavad Gita and apply the principles. So my thought is that if we want a corrupt-free environment, not only the leaders, but also they have to encourage this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to be one of the curriculums in the schools and colleges. So that, as ma'am was saying, all these difficulties, what the children are facing, the misgivings, all that, they can be addressed from the very beginning of life. And especially the children, they will not go to do any suicide, because they have this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. They know how to face life. So this is what I think, that Bhagavad Gita should be taught in the schools and colleges. That's what I feel, in order to have a corrupt-free environment. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Krishna